Welcome to my pantry. So we are in my upstairs storage room right now, and I wanted to talk a little bit today about some of the things that you can find in my pantry at all times. If you really have a keen eye, then you can see that I have things that are not from Azure Standard, that are just from the regular grocery store. I have things like sesame oil and mustard, things like that, even some sunflower seeds that I picked up from like Target. But then you will also find things that I absolutely pick up from Azure Standard. Things like coconut milk. I have some flaxseed in here. I have some chia seeds. I have some black beans. And so I wanted to show you guys some of the things that I will always get from Azure Standard and some things that I will happily pick up from my local grocery store. Okay, I made it back from Sam's. I did pick up a few things, but not a ton. I didn't really need a lot. You can kind of see our pantry is pretty stocked full right now, which I was trying to keep that way for all of January and February. Done a pretty good job so far. I didn't need a ton of actual grocery items. I needed to pick up more like household stuff, so I grabbed some of that. But I did want to talk about the stuff that whenever I start to run low on, I always tend to run just to the grocery store to pick up, and then some of the things that I absolutely will always order from Azure whenever possible. Now, I will preface this by saying that there are some things that I've ordered from Azure that are like, if we just have a little extra in our grocery budget and I feel like I do prefer to order from there, because I do feel like that the quality on a lot of stuff is just better. Not everything, for sure, not everything, but on a lot of stuff, I have been so impressed with the quality of that stuff. But on the stuff that I just pick up from the grocery store, it's stuff that, if I'm totally honest, it really doesn't matter to us that much. If it is like organic or free range or any of that stuff, like if it is just as good of quality from the grocery store, then usually I will try to save money whenever possible, and then save my Azure order for the things that genuinely do make a difference for us. So the first thing that I will grab from Sam's or Walmart or Target if I really feel like that we are running low is spices. So I do love the Azure spices, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I have found that the spices that you get from Sam's tend to be a pretty good quality as well. So I don't know if it's as good, but for me, if it's something that I can't wait until my next order from Azure, then I don't have a problem grabbing that from the grocery store. Garlic is another one. So I know that people, you either love it or you hate it, I guess, but I do not like having the bulbs of garlic that I have to peel and chop, and I'm not a huge fan of chopping stuff anyway. I'll do it if I absolutely have to, but it's not my favorite thing in the world to do. And so I really prefer to just grab the package of minced garlic from the grocery store. I have ordered garlic from Azure one time, and when I got it, all of the bulbs were like gooey and black and not good. So it's not something that I would probably order from them again anyway, even if I was going to go to fresh garlic. The next one is yeast. Now this one is, I will say, pretty specific. So when I can find the Fleischmann's yeast at Sam's, then I don't have a problem getting that. Otherwise, I will always get our yeast from Azure whenever I can. Sam's had a different brand for a little bit. I don't remember the name of the brand, but it was, I want to say, like in a red and white package, but it didn't work nearly as well for us. The bread just didn't rise as well. It would take a lot longer to proof than normal. And it just, I don't know, it didn't have the same really umphy, like yeasty flavor that I get from the Fleischmann's and from the yeast that I get from Azure Standard. This one, I think is going to be a little controversial to some people, but that is rice. So I've ordered rice from Azure, and their rice was really great. And I've bought the rice from Sam's, and I couldn't tell a difference at all in the flavor. So I always get basmati rice. That's just the one that my family tends to eat the best. And so I have a 5-gallon bucket full of basmati rice right now, and we eat it regularly. But That is one of the things that I have found, that pound for pound, because we can't tell the difference, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to order it from Azure if I can just get it from the grocery store for a much, much better price. Up next is nuts, specifically pecans. So I do order nuts from Azure and I really like them. I haven't gotten any that seemed rancid at all. I've been really, really pleased with the quality of the nuts from every single order that I've ever gotten from them. But I will say pecans, I didn't notice a difference at all. So we live in pecan country here in Oklahoma. And so for us, I can get it from like local farm stands here. And that's usually where I will get it from. Partially because I just like shopping at those places better than I would like shopping at a grocery store. But partially because I know that those are this year's pecans. So they are always going to be the freshest and the best tasting. But if I cannot get them from there, I don't have a problem getting them from Sam's. I will say I don't know as much about any of the other nuts or seeds because those, I do tend to get them from Azure just because I like to buy those in bulk because we go through them a lot. And so it just makes a lot more sense. Price per pound when I'm buying in bulk does seem to be a better deal from Azure. The next one is ketchup. So I have tried the Portland ketchup from Azure. Quite frankly, the one that my family just likes the most is the Heinz. And so because that's what they actually will eat, then that's what I'm actually going to give them. I know that it's just not a hill I'm willing to die on. Honestly, there's not enough sugar in it for it to really make that big of a difference for me. There's not any coloring in it or anything like that. And so I don't have a problem just sticking with the Heinz, and the price per ounce is so much better than the price per ounce on the Azure ketchup. So for us, for our family, it just makes sense to stick with the one from Sam's. Another product that I definitely prefer to just buy from a grocery store rather than ordering from Azure is pasta. So this is actually one of the only things that I've ever ordered from Azure that I was really disappointed in. I ordered their pasta and I just was not a fan. I ended up cooking it and just feeding it directly to the chickens, which was great. They loved it. But it just had like a weird gummy texture for us. And so I wasn't a huge fan of that one, and neither was my family. And so it just makes sense for us to just stick with the pasta that I can pick up from Aldi or Walmart or Target or Sam's. And it is just readily available. It's definitely not something that we tend to not be able to find. There was a little bit of time there that it was something that was hard to find, and it's also one of those things because we have chickens and we have a lot of eggs and I always have flour in stock that I can just make fairly easily myself too. Along those same lines, I really, really love the Rayo's pasta sauce. And especially right now, you can get it from Sam's. I want to say it's less than $8 for 2 jars of it. And the pasta sauce from Azure is more expensive than that. And the ingredients in the Rayo's, it's a clean sauce. I really like it. And so for that reason, I'm going to stick with the Rayo's. Now, I have ordered multiple different kinds of pasta sauce from Azure Standard, and I have never gotten one from them that I do not like. The next one is maple syrup. So I have got a lot of maple syrup from a lot of different places, and I will tell you, I don't have the palate, I guess, to discern the difference between any of them. And the organic maple syrup from Sam's, I think, is just as good as the maple syrup from Azure Standard. Now, I do know that Azure tends to go with like small farmers, which I really like that. So it might be something that we would splurge on, but if I am really crunched in our budget, then the maple syrup from Sam's gets us by absolutely just fine. We do tend to make our own yogurt, but I like to just get yogurt as a starter every time. I don't use yogurt that I've already made as a starter for my next batch because I have found that it just kind of weakens it over time. And it just makes it, each batch gets runnier and runnier. And if you've ever made homemade yogurt, you know that it starts out pretty liquid anyway. We like that texture of yogurt, so it's fine with me. But I do like to get yogurt from like Sam's. A lot of times I'll just get the individual sized containers of Chobani from like Target, and very often that will be sufficient. But we really like the honey vanilla Greek yogurt that I pick up from Sam's, and that works really great. It has the live active cultures, so we will eat most of that container and then just use the last cup or so of it to make homemade yogurt out of. If you have ever ordered from Azure, there's a very good chance that you have ordered the Stacy's tortillas, and I really like them. The problem that I have with them though is that they have to stay frozen or in the refrigerator, and for us that space is just really valuable. So I have no problem picking up the tortillas from Sam's. They have a low carb option. They have the different sizes, which I really like. If I'm not going to make them myself, which usually is what I would do, but if I am not going to make them myself, then picking some up or just having some in my pantry, I would prefer to have some that don't have to be refrigerated or frozen, just because that real estate is really important to us. Just like yogurt, there's a few other dairy items that I will continually get just from the grocery store. Things like sour cream. I know that there is a cultured sour cream that you can pick up. Nancy's, I think, is the brand. I tried it once. My family wasn't a huge fan, and quite frankly, the Daisy sour cream is pretty clean. All that is in it is just cultured cream. So it's cultured as well, which, I mean, I feel pretty good about that. Now, you can pick up some sour creams that have like gelatin in it and that sort of thing to make it thicker. Daisy is not like that, and as long as Sam's carries the Daisy and has it for a really good price, then I don't have a problem just getting that. Heavy whipping cream is another one. I do prefer to just get our dairy raw, but if I can't do that, especially heavy whipping cream has a pretty long shelf life if you get it from the grocery store in one of the cartons. And so that's something that we use a ton of heavy whipping cream in our house for things like coffee and pasta dishes and just lots of different stuff. And so as long as I'm using it that much, it kind of just makes sense for us to get it from the grocery store. I'm happy with the quality of that. I've never had a problem with it, so we'll keep getting it from there. In a lot of the same way that I'm a big fan of the Daisy sour cream, I am a big fan of the Philadelphia cream cheese. It's another product that is fairly clean. It doesn't have very many ingredients in it at all, and I have never found a cream cheese that my family has liked more than that. Sam's usually has a pretty good deal on cream cheese. I make a lot of bagels. We go through a lot of cream cheese in our house. So buying it in bulk from Sam's, again, it lasts several months in your refrigerator. So I will happily get all of that from Sam's and keep it in my refrigerator, but be able to just pick it up easily whenever I need it. And then the last thing that I probably will just always buy from a local grocery store is going to be our produce. So anything that I don't grow myself or that I don't pick up like from other farmers around me or from a farmer's market, I do tend to just get from the grocery store. So I am trying, just as the years go by, to grow more and more and more of our own stuff. But it is something that I have just found is not really worth it for me to pick up from Azure. Maybe that won't always be the case, but I have found that the quality is just not different enough from the organic produce that I can get in my grocery store versus the organic produce that they sell. And oftentimes by the time it gets to me, the stuff from the grocery store just looks better anyway. That isn't always the case, but for the most part, I would say that that is true. So that being said, there are a few things that I will absolutely continue to order from Azure, things that even if I have to wait an extra month or whatever to pick up, then I don't mind waiting and not getting it from a grocery store if that is what is necessary. And a lot of these things are things that I keep a lot in stock in my own home, just so that if I do have to skip a month for whatever reason, if they're out of stock of something, or I'm not going to be able to do a pickup, then I don't have a problem like missing a month on that. So the first thing that I will say is their spices. So I know I said that I pick those up from the grocery store, but I do prefer to get them from Azure a lot of times because I do like to buy in bulk. Here's one. They'll come in like a bigger package. This one's like the smallest size package that you can get. The price per pound on their spices does tend to be a pretty good price. And so if it is something that I use a lot, like minced onion, the only one that I wasn't a huge fan of was the garlic powder. It was just a little too fine for my taste, but I think if I went with the minced garlic, it might be better. But anything like thyme, minced onion, cinnamon, cumin, chili powder, stuff that I use on a very regular basis, it just makes sense to get like a big bag. So I almost always get a full pound whenever I order any spices because that's stuff that I run through quite a bit. The next one is sugar. So I don't have any. I actually need to order some, but if you have ever ordered the cane sugar from there, then you know it's a different color. So it is a pure cane sugar. It does not have any corn, anything in it. It does not have beet, anything in it. It is just pure cane sugar, and it looks different. It feels different. It tastes different. And so I will almost always, unless I just happen to run out for whatever reason, I will get our sugar from Azure Standard. In fact, I only am placing an order this month for a couple of things, and that is one of them because I definitely needed to get some more of that after all of our holiday baking. In those same lines, honey. Honey is something that I have found that the quality does tend to be a little bit better from Azure, and it's just a really good price. So the price per pound of what I'm getting, I am a big fan. Plus I get a nice glass jar with it, which I save these and I use them for other things, which is really nice. So honey, I will continue to get from Azure Standard as well. Another big one is oils. So this is olive oil. I have one of these, I think, of avocado oil upstairs too. I have found that the oils from Azure are just above and beyond so much better quality. It is a good price for a gallon of really good cold pressed pure extra virgin olive oil, and it is definitely something that, as long as my family can afford it, I will always choose to get from Azure Standard. Another big one for me is the chicken. So I harp on the chickens from there all the time. They are air chilled rather than chilled in like a water salt solution mixture, and that just, it lends for a better product in the end. I have found a couple of places locally that I can pick up air chilled chicken, just like smaller grocery stores, that sort of thing. Target does have one brand of chicken that is air chilled, and you can absolutely tell the difference. So whenever I order whole chickens, I always order them from Azure. It is just not something that I even look at a local grocery store anymore unless I am just wanting to get like chicken, like boneless, skinless chicken breast. Then I do, because I do pick up the air chilled as often as I can afford it from Target or Reese's, which is another grocery store in our area. They do have like in a blue container, it's called Smart Chicken, and that is air chilled, and I am a big fan of that. But other than that, the chicken that I get is from Azure Standard. And then the last thing that I would say, if I order nothing else from Azure, I will always go back to them. It is for this butter right here. So this butter. It is a completely different flavor and look than any other butter that you can get. Kerrygold kind of comes close, but it is a European style butter, which means it has less actual water in the product itself, and it is grass fed. So you can tell a difference from butter that is from fully grass-fed cows versus butter that is not. So if you look at the color of it, you can, I mean, it's so different. So this butter is very yellow. It just tastes better, but it's also just better for you. So this has beta carotene in it. That's what the color is. It comes from the beta carotene from the grass that the cows are eating, and it is going to have more vitamins, more nutrients in the actual butter itself. So we go through a lot of butter. I use it to cook with. I use it in like bread. We spread it on toast in the morning. I mean, we go through a lot of butter in our house, and if I'm going to go through that much butter, I want it to be good. So it is something that I do spend more money on because it is something that I use so often in our home. So butter, you cannot go wrong with this brand. So that's it, guys. There's a lot of things obviously in our pantry that we get from the grocery store. There are a lot of things that I did not talk about today that I have ordered from Azure. For the most part, there hasn't really been anything from Azure that I've ordered that I just really hated. Other than the pasta, it was not good. But everything else I was pretty pleased with. Obviously we have a lot of other groceries in our house, but I will say that those are things that I buy on a very regular basis. Those are the things that I use in my home on a very regular basis. And so I just wanted to give like a brief overview, I don't know how brief that was, of the things that I prefer to maybe spend less money on and just pick up from our grocery store, or things that are definitely worth it that I order from Azure Standard. So I hope that was helpful for you guys, and I will see you guys next time.